There is a kind of pain that almost nobody talks about. It happens in silence, usually at night, when the world finally becomes quiet, when there are no more distractions, no more conversations, no more notifications, just you, your thoughts. And the feeling that you cared more than they ever did. You tell yourself you should be over it by now. You tell yourself it should not hurt this much, but it still does. Because this was never only about one person, it was about what they made you question. Your worth. Your place in someone else's life. Whether you were ever enough. Maybe you remember every little detail, the way they smiled, the way they laughed, the way they looked at you during the moments that made you believe something real was beginning. You held on to those moments. You replayed them in your mind. You believed they meant the same thing to both of you. Then one day you realized something. You were the one reaching first. You were the one checking in. You were the one making time. You were the one carrying the conversation. You were the one hoping. Little by little, it became impossible to ignore. You cared more, you loved harder, you waited longer, you forgave more, and somehow you still blamed yourself when it fell apart. That is what happens when your heart becomes attached before your mind has time to catch up. You stop asking whether someone is choosing you. You only ask how you can become easier to choose. You become quieter, you become more patient, you lower your expectations. You convince yourself that asking for the bare minimum is asking for too much, so you settle. You settle for slow replies. You settle for mixed signals. You settle for feeling confused. You settle for wondering where you stand. Deep down, you know something feels wrong. But hope has a strange way of making pain feel temporary. You keep believing tomorrow will be different. Maybe tomorrow they will realize. Maybe tomorrow they will care. Maybe tomorrow they will choose me. Tomorrow becomes another week, another month, another disappointment. Eventually, you stop expecting consistency. You become grateful for small pieces of attention, a message, a compliment, a few minutes together. Things that should have felt normal begin to feel special, not because they were, because you were starving for connection. Loneliness can do that. It lowers the standard for what feels like love. You begin confusing effort with possibility. You begin confusing potential with reality. You hold on to who someone could become instead of seeing who they are today. I know that feeling. I know what it is like to make excuses for someone because losing hope feels more painful than losing them. I know what it is like to tell yourself they are just busy, they are just tired, they are just confused, until one day you realize you have spent more time explaining their actions than they ever spent showing you they cared. That realization hurts, not because you expected perfection, because you expected effort, because love should never make you feel like you are asking permission to exist in someone else's life. Sometimes the hardest part is not losing them. It is realizing how much of yourself you lost while trying to keep them. You stopped saying what you needed. You stopped sharing what hurt. You became afraid that honesty would push them away, so you carried your sadness quietly. You smiled when you wanted to cry. You accepted things that broke your heart. You convinced yourself that love meant sacrifice. But love is not supposed to erase you. Love should never require you to disappear. Being the person who always cares more is exhausting. You notice everything. You remember birthdays. You remember little stories. You remember the things people say they love. You check in when someone goes quiet. You notice when their voice sounds different. You care. You care deeply, sometimes too deeply. There is nothing wrong with having a kind heart. The pain begins when your kindness is only moving in one direction. Relationships cannot survive on one person carrying all the weight. Love cannot grow where only one heart is watering it. Still you wonder, maybe I was too emotional, maybe I expected too much, maybe I should have needed less. Those thoughts are understandable, but they are not always true. There is a difference between expecting too much and expecting mutual care. There is a difference between being needy and wanting consistency. There is a difference between asking for love and begging for attention. You deserve to know that difference, because if you do not, you will spend years apologizing for needs that are completely human. You will feel guilty for wanting reassurance. You will feel guilty for wanting honesty. You will feel guilty for wanting someone to care the way you care. Then something even quieter begins to happen. You stop trusting your own feelings. You wonder if every disappointment is somehow your fault. You begin believing that your heart is the problem. Maybe I love too much. Maybe I care too much. Maybe I am simply too much. That is what emotional neglect often sounds like inside your own mind. Not anger, not blame, just quiet self-doubt, night after night, thought after thought. You begin measuring your value by how someone else responds to you. If they text back quickly, you feel important. If they ignore you, you feel invisible. Your peace becomes connected to someone else's attention. That is a heavy way to live. No heart can carry that forever. Here is something loneliness rarely tells you. The person who gives more love is not automatically less worthy. The quieter person is not automatically less interesting. The one who stays is not automatically easier to leave. Sometimes people simply cannot meet you where you are. Sometimes they are not ready. Sometimes they do not know how. Sometimes they are looking for something different. None of those things erase your value. But when you have been hurt enough, everything starts feeling personal. Every goodbye feels like proof. Every silence feels like rejection. Every ending feels like another reason to believe you are not enough. Feelings can become very convincing, especially after midnight, especially when you are alone with your thoughts, especially when there is nobody there to remind you that your fears are speaking louder than reality. A feeling is real. It deserves compassion. But it is not always telling the truth. Feeling unwanted does not mean you are unwanted. Feeling forgotten does not mean you have no place in this world. Feeling alone does not mean you will always be alone. The heart often mistakes temporary pain for permanent truth. That is why healing takes time. Healing is not forcing yourself to stop caring. Healing is learning where your care belongs. Not everyone deserves unlimited access to your heart. Not everyone deserves endless chances. Not everyone deserves the version of you that keeps giving while receiving almost nothing in return. That is not selfish. That is respect. Respect for your own heart. Respect for your own peace. You are allowed to stop chasing people who only notice you when it is convenient. You are allowed to stop proving your worth. You are allowed to let silence answer questions that words never could. There comes a moment when you slowly realize something. You cannot love someone into loving you. You cannot care enough for two people. You cannot fill a space they refuse to meet you in. Love is shared. It cannot survive forever as a one-person effort. This is not easy to accept, especially if you have always been the giver, especially if loving others has become part of your identity. You may even wonder who you are if you stop giving so much away. The answer is simple. You become someone who finally gives some of that love back to yourself. Not all at once. Slowly, quietly, without making a big announcement. You begin protecting your peace. You begin listening to your own feelings. You stop chasing explanations from people who already gave you their answer through their actions. You begin believing actions, not promises, not potential actions. That changes everything. You stop asking why you are not enough. You start asking whether the connection was healthy for you in the first place. You stop seeing every ending as your failure. You start seeing them as information. You stop measuring yourself by who stayed. You begin measuring yourself by how honestly you lived. That kind of change is quiet. Most people will never notice it, but you will. One day you will realize you are no longer checking your phone every few minutes. You are no longer waiting for someone to remember you. You are no longer building your entire day around one person's attention. That does not mean you stopped wanting love. It means your life no longer depends on it. Wanting love is human. Wanting connection is human. Wanting someone to choose you is human. There is nothing weak about that. The goal is not to stop wanting those things. The goal is to stop believing they are the only things that make you valuable, because they are not. Your value was never created by another person's interest. It cannot disappear because someone walked away. It cannot disappear because someone failed to appreciate what you offered. Love should recognize your worth, not create it. Maybe you still think about the people who never cared the way you cared. Maybe part of you always will. That is okay. Some memories stay with us. Some people teach us lessons we never wanted to learn, but they still teach us. They teach us that effort should go both ways. They teach us that peace is more valuable than uncertainty. They teach us that the right connection does not leave you constantly guessing where you stand. You deserve to rest. You deserve relationships where affection is not confusing, where kindness is not rare, where honesty is normal, where you never have to earn the right to be loved. Until that day comes, keep choosing yourself. Not because you have given up on love, because you have finally understood that your heart deserves care from the person who lives with it every single day. Maybe one day someone will meet you with the same energy, the same honesty, the same depth. Maybe they will appreciate the way you remember little things. The way you stay, the way you love. Maybe it will happen sooner than you think. Maybe it will take longer. Nobody can promise when. But while life unfolds, please do not abandon yourself. Do not call yourself difficult to love. Do not believe that caring deeply is a flaw. The world needs people who care. The only lesson is to give that care wisely. Give it to people who protect it. Give it to people who return it. Give it to yourself. Tonight, if you are lying awake wondering why you always seem to care more, please remember this. Your heart is not too much. It has simply been given to people who could not hold it. That is not the same thing. One day your kindness will feel safe instead of heavy. One day your love will feel received instead of ignored. Until then, be patient with yourself. Be gentle with yourself. Keep your heart open. Just do not leave it in the hands of someone who keeps proving they do not know how to hold it.